I would like to thank Game Up, our sponsor for the podcast. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
That's right. Yeah, 8-pack of any of those flavors, and it's 110 calories. It's low carb. Enjoy yourself some Game Up. UFC 306, UFC Noche by way of Riyadh season. It was a spectacle for sure. Overall, before we even get into it here, I think I actually took a little bit of notes on the spear itself here. One and done is what they're saying. We'll have to wait and see on that, obviously, but part of that is because they specifically have a contract with MGM, and MGM had let them out of this contract. And actually, on an interview that our friend Joe recommended, Two Bears, One Cave, he talked about his issue with MGM because they had booked Canelo for that fight. And he's not mad at Canelo. He was mad at MGM. And as he quotes, they fucked me and they fuck me all the time. And the arena people. But he said the guy who actually owns the MGM did approach him, try to make things work. And he said, can we do? And he said, I want to put a show at the Spear. And so they got out of their contract just for this. Does that happen again? I don't know. There will be a documentary on this show too, on everything leading up to it. I'm sure that will be very cool. I know they had a documentary specifically for Roku that everybody liked and talked about. Fight of the night, Zellhuber versus Esteban
Ribovics.
Thank you. Performance of the night, Souza and Bahamondos.
The only two people to get finishes on the card.
Right. Yeah. Which is going to be, okay, so even before we get into the fight-by-fight thing, I want to talk a little bit about this. We talked last year about UFC Noche when it was a fight night card. And we both talked about how we liked that event and how it was a little different, and they put something a little different on a fight night. And a lot of times with these fight night cards in particular, anything really the UFC does, they can be a little sterile. You know, I mean, they do what they do, you know, and the fights can be fun and exciting depending on the card, but it's usually what you get is what you get. So on that note, I appreciate them doing something different. I did like the setup of everything. Me personally, I would have liked to see a little more on the history of Mexican fighters. Show me more stuff from like Julio Cesar Chavez. Show me stuff like that, you know, and that's the kind of stuff I like to see. But I didn't have a problem with anything they did. I liked it. It was good enough. The ultimate issue is you had 5 fights on the main card. 3 of them, which were really good. 2 of them, the main event and your co-main event, unfortunately did not deliver stylistically because of the style of the fights. But regardless, even if those last 2 had been bangers, all 5 of your fights went decision. So you kind of have to figure something out, because when that happens, like, I mean, all this extra time you're spending on this other stuff is just killing us on the East Coast and some of these other places. I mean, at least from our standpoint of view. I think it took away from some of the event. I would say some of the people who watched it with us probably would have been maybe less critical of the performance and how everything looked had we had finishes and the fight night ended a little earlier. Even at 1 o'clock, I don't think they would have been happy with 1, but if even at 1 o'clock, I think it would have changed people's mind. 12:30 would have been fine. You know?
Yeah.
12 would be perfect. But yeah, I think that's the problem. I think from a production standpoint, it looked good. Wasn't completely what I wanted, but the big problem I had is all those fights go into decision, and then we still have to have time for all of this as well.
Yeah, I agree. The visuals were really cool, I thought. Not everyone enjoyed them, as you were saying.
Majority of people, by the way, I saw online that are MMA podcasts and stuff did enjoy it from what I see.
Yeah, they were cool. I don't know if that's something I'd want every time, but also this is the first time the UFC is doing this, so they're figuring it out too. If they were to, which I think they will go back to the Sphere at some point, maybe once a year or once every couple of years or whatever. But as far as this went, I mean, they had like a whole Legends of the Hidden Temple looking background at one point that was really cool. Looked like Kumite or whatever. The card really didn't match. It didn't, on paper, measure up to the grandiose nature of the Sphere. So if it had been like a Conor fight card or Jones and Stipe was on this one or something like that, maybe it would have been a little bit better. But it started out at a disadvantage because of that for me. And then obviously the pacing, it was brutal. They didn't know every fight except for 2 was going to go to decision, but they do their job is making fights. They have a pretty good idea what's going to happen in those fights. And you could tell matchmaking wise, especially the main event and co-main event. I mean, unless they were really banking on Sean O'Malley, which we thought, he could knock him out, but smart money was really on what happened. Merab going to decision. So poor ideas from the UFC, I think, on matchmaking. But there's a lot of issues with that, where availability and injuries and all that stuff. But
they would have thought, I think they thought those first 3 fights were going to be finishes for sure.
Yeah. I don't know about the first one, but definitely the Zellhuber Ribovics, even though it wasn't a finish, if every fight went that long, I wouldn't have had a problem with the pace.
This is great. That's the best fight.
Best fight for sure. Possible fight of the year so far, but we'll get into it. But I didn't like how much, and obviously the commentators are in there, but I did not like how much the commentators were just fawning over the inside of the sphere. And I get, you're in there and maybe it's awe-inspiring or whatever, but it's hard to convey that to people at home who paid $80, $85 or whatever it was. I don't even remember. I tried not to pay attention. I just hit buy, but I don't think it really translated to the vast majority of people at the scale they wanted it to. So I don't know. Going forward, I'm not looking forward to this so much. If they do it again, they could correct some things. I am with you. It wasn't exactly what I thought. It was just cool visuals, not necessarily the history lesson I thought we were going to get on Mexican combat sports.
I felt like the fight night they did the year before had more of that. And that's
I agree. 100%. Yeah. So
you want to talk about any of these preliminary cards? Maybe the axe wound?
We got to talk about Norma Dumont versus Irene Aldana. Yeah. Worst cut I've ever seen in any combat sport.
Awful.
Maybe ever in anything. There was a clash ahead earlier in the fight, and then Aldana had a cut, like right above her eye. And then Norma just kept jabbing it over and over again. And it went from the top of her forehead here, and it went all the way down her eye into her cheek. It was like 8 inches long. It was huge. Yeah. It was disgusting. They were like opening it and closing it. It was very very bad.
A lot of blood that night, but all the blood that was there was from that fight.
Yeah. What a warrior. Obviously, need to say that Aldana didn't give up. The fight went the distance. It didn't get stopped, but Norma dominated anyway. But tough. And I saw Luke Thomas pointing out, like, possibly disfigured her face, for what, 20 grand or whatever to get paid. Goes back to fighter pay, where there's real consequences. The rest of her life. She's not an old lady.
Yeah.
Now she's got a big scar going to be on the middle of her face.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is tough because this is really the danger of combat sports. But I think the issue here with that is that, not to go down this side quest too much, is that, that might happen in the lower rankings of boxing and stuff like that. But in the UFC, the way things are designed, you're supposed to be the UFC. Like, this is supposed to be the big leagues of everything. So you would like to think that kind of pay and that kind of stuff wouldn't happen.
Well, also, I know that it was like a gradual opening of the cut. They probably could have stopped the fight a bit earlier because, like I said, it's her eye, like right around her eye, the cut was, probably could have stopped the fight a little bit earlier. She really had no chance of winning the fight anyway. Let's get in this main card. Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne.
Ronaldo Rodriguez gets the win here. Good fight. We watched this with another friend of ours who would say probably is a casual, and he actually even enjoyed, and I talked about it, was the scrambles in this. The groundwork was actually very exciting because they were moving at such a great pace, and the strikes when they were happening were fun. That's the thing, right? When you get athletic flyweights and you get this kind of pace, you're going to have an exciting fight. This was a great kickoff to the night. I had someone comment on our YouTube channel that this was a perfect way to start off this card. I agree. I don't know. What weight class was this again?
Flyweight.
No, I usually try to pick an opponent for somebody. I clearly screwed this up. I must have put down featherweight because there's no way he should fight Edson Barboza next. That would be a horrible
That'd be very tough. That'd be very tough for him, yeah.
I'm just going to say keep doing your thing, man. And I hope you get a title shot.
Ronaldo is the person who got the decision win. Obviously, all decisions on this main card. So Ronaldo got the decision, but he fought back from a rough first round. He possibly could have been a 10-8 really for Ode. I thought, but it didn't get called that way. So Ronaldo ended up getting the win, dominated 2 and 3. So shout out to him. Let's move on to the next fight. Possible fight of the year: Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovics.
Yeah, I'd picked Esteban originally for this because I said I was picking all the Mexican fighters, and then when you informed me he was from Argentina, I went with Zellhuber. And I think it's funny because Esteban really did show that Mexican fighting spirit, though. The fight, because he looked great, I thought, in the beginning, and then Zellhuber really poured it on. And then they both just started battling at different points. They were both in trouble, and they were connecting. And this was just that kind of, they weren't heavyweights, but it was kind of that Mark Hunt, Bigfoot Silva fight where people were just battling back and forth. Yeah, it's almost hard to describe. I almost would just say, just go see this fight. Like, you could watch this card, and you're going to try to make it a point to find it online somewhere. Like, this would be that one. Go check this out. For Esteban, I was thinking maybe Bobby Green would be a nice fight for him because just slightly on the rise up, but another exciting fighter with a little more of a name. And let's see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I did expect this fight to be an exciting fight, but oh my goodness. Yeah, like I said, I think it's fight of the year so far. Very close win for Ribovics. Like you said, back and forth in every round, really. But I agree with you. I don't think there's anything we can say that will do this fight justice. Do yourself a favor and go watch it, for sure.
I don't think we say that too often, but especially an undercard fight. But I mean, this was definitely a great showcase fight for these two guys.
Right. Absolutely. We'll be tuning in for every single one of their fights going forward. Another exciting fight: Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. We knew this one was going to be fun too.
Yeah, we knew Lopes would probably rock him early, and the question was, would Ortega be able to submit him if he got to the ground? The answer was no, not on this night. And Lopes did not shy away from getting into his guard at different times. Diego Lopes he is continuing to impress me even more. Like, he looks so good in the fights leading up to this, but with this one, this was such a step up in competition. At least we did say we picked Diego Lopes because we thought Brian, a little inactive over the last couple years, injuries here and there, and it just felt like it was going to be.
I picked Ortega.
Oh, you did? That's right. You did. I'm sorry. You did pick Ortega, but you had some of the same concerns, I think, too. At the end of the day, I didn't feel like Ortega was bad or anything like that on this night. It was just Diego Lopes looked that good, and I'm really even more excited for this guy. I don't know what the deal is with him grabbing the throat type deal that he does all the time.
It's like Poirier lifting up his shorts.
Yeah.
That's a weird one for sure.
It's a weird tick, but that being said, he wants a championship fight. I can see why. You can definitely make an argument for that, but being that this is the first big name that he has, and Max Holloway has the next fight with Ilya, I'm going to suggest Yair Rodriguez or Arnold Allen next. I think those are the next two tippy top guys. I like the Arnold Allen fight because Arnold's also just coming off a victory. And if Ilya beats Max, that's a fight Ilya and Arnold Allen we haven't seen. If Max wins, then I know Max has the win over Arnold Allen and Yair. So it is what it is there. But I just think that might be a little more fun. Stylistically, Yair might be a little more of a fun fight because
I think the Yair one would be so great.
Yeah. But either way, I hope we do one of those next in the meantime. And then the winner of that can meet the winner of the championship fight we have coming up.
Yeah, I guess my addition to what you said would just be Brian is going up to 155 now. It almost looked like he came in a little bit soft compared to what he has been, maybe at a rough weight cut or whatever. So probably the right move going forward. Maybe wasn't all the way in on that, although, he was ready to go for sure. Oh my God, his chin too.
Yeah.
I've watched the clip of the right hand and the left hook that hit him. He got knocked out by the right hand, and on his way down, the left hook hit him and woke him up, basically. So amazing chin on Brian, and I think it only is going to get better at 155. I hope so, because they hit harder, obviously. But I would like to see him. I mean, tough ask against Lopes because he's great at jiu-jitsu as well. But I'd like to see Brian stop just trying to get into slugfest with guys and really just work on wrestling and getting the fight to the ground and then utilizing his jiu-jitsu because
he's striking solid.
Yeah.
He can add that wrestling game with the lethal jiu-jitsu he's already got.
Yeah, work on your strengths because if you can threaten those takedowns in the jiu-jitsu more, all it does is open up the striking. So I think he needs to work on that. Maybe fell in love ever since that, Frankie Edgar knockout, maybe fell in love with his hands a little bit too much. You think he would have learned his lesson with Max when Max taught him a lesson on how to block. In their fight, go back to the jiu-jitsu. So close to being champ with the jiu-jitsu, not knocking out Volkanovski, but he almost choked him out. I think maybe his camp needs to get after him about playing to his strengths a little bit more. So I am looking forward to hopefully he can get back in there sooner. I don't want to see him have like a long layoff again.
Right.
He didn't get knocked out, although he definitely took a lot of damage, and he has been taking a lot of damage in every fight. So hopefully he can get away from that going forward. But let's see some more jiu-jitsu from the guy named T-City for Triangle City. So those are all the fun fights. Let's move on to the co-main event. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko.
Valentina gets the W here, right? She did what she had to do. It's tough because it was stylistically not a fun fight, but I think you also have to, now that we have had time to digest it, we have to credit her too. She is somebody who was the most dominant women's flyweight champion, and she was starting to look like she was slowing down. Grasso chokes her out, and then suddenly she's in a rematch that she looks like she might have won, but it's super close and it's called a draw. But we're thinking, okay, it's been a year, like, this is probably going to be Grasso's time. At least I was. And at the end of the day, no, she figured out all of Grasso's weaknesses. She played up to him, and she used her wrestling brilliantly. Unfortunately, it made for a long night for us because of the previous fights, even though they were fun, all going to distance, and we're about to get another one to go distance. It made for a rough night, but I mean, you can't take away anything from this lady. Like, what an outstanding combat sports athlete. What a career she's had so far. I can't help but think about what's next, like even after this fight. And we've talked about it too. I'd like to see her to go up to bantamweight, but obviously there's a lot of great contenders. I'd say Erin Blanchfield, probably give her the title shot, but you do have a couple other great girls in there. So maybe a title shot at featherweight for somebody. And then maybe if it lines, I'd love to see her get a bantamweight shot, at least before she calls it quits though.
Yeah, I think Manon Farrow and Thug Rose have, shots to get opportunities.
And Barbara was right there too. If she beats one of those other girls, where I win. So there's a lot of talent in that division.
Yeah, but back to the fight. Yeah, I might be biased because it was very late and I was tired, but this fight was very boring. I did think that Valentina was going to use a lot of grappling because that is Grasso's weakness. But I think it says more about Grasso. She had to know that Valentina was going to grapple, and she didn't look like she improved her wrestling at all. So, she had the first fight where she caught her when Valentina was throwing the spinning elbow. She jumped on her back and choked her out. And then she had that super close decision, which I thought she lost. And then I didn't see any improvement in the third fight. So I don't know what was going on with that, but Valentina did what she needed to do. She laid and prayed, thought she could have been a little bit more aggressive. She was pretty dominant in the grappling, holding her down. So boring fight. It's on the UFC for having this on this card. Like, this is what I'm talking about, when this big epic card and you put this fight as the co-main event. You knew, I mean, unless there's always the chance, obviously, that Shevchenko would head kick her or Grasso would land a shot or whatever. But it was never likely. This was probably always going to go to decision.
I think they were banking on that the other three fights would be exciting. Grasso's your Mexican champion, so they were hoping she wins.
Right.
And then they're hoping that Merab, I think they were hoping O'Malley was going to get a knockout. And a lot of people actually were looking into that before we get to that fight. I saw O'Malley. A lot of people were predicting O'Malley knockout. And it's
like, I think it was like after 12:30 before, like while this fight was happening. So, I mean, pacing wise, it was brutal, but like you said, they didn't really predict the pacing very well.
No, and I want to say one other thing before we go to the next fight too, because you kind of made me think of it. Grasso, maybe a situation of false confidence. Maybe because you did choke out her, and then in the second fight it was a draw. Maybe you just felt like you secretly like you won that fight, and you had more confidence going in. Okay, now it's going to be a third fight. She's getting older. You're thinking, I got this, and then you really should have probably worked on some stuff. And at the end of the day, man, you can't underestimate Valentina. But this was a rough fight to watch too. I can't sugarcoat that.
Yeah. Let's go on to the main event. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvallishvili.
So this fight, another stylistically tough fight to watch, but I do have to comment on some other stuff here. Of course, right at the get-go, Herb Dean stops the fight because Merab is yelling back and forth with O'Malley's coach. O'Malley's coach is trying to coach against Merab, and I believe you're not allowed to do that too, or there's a
He was giving him instructions. He was giving Merab instructions,
right,
which is what he did to Aljo before Aljo got knocked out.
Right.
Which you're not allowed to do.
I guess it's like baiting somebody, right? You're trying to, yeah. Anyway, so that was a weird moment just because it started like very almost instantly. I thought, this is going to be an interesting fight. And I thought in the opening moments, O'Malley was looking decent, and then he got taken down, and once he got taken down towards the end, I think it happened twice in the first round. You start to wonder, looking back at it, I think O'Malley's confidence started to get shook a little bit. It wasn't that he stopped trying, but I think he was starting to like get frustrated and didn't really know what to do. Now then we have another weird moment. I can't remember if it was round 2 or 3 where it looks like I think Merab is trying to go for like a guillotine or down, and he starts kissing.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's kissing the back of O'Malley's neck, and Herb is yelling at him. I don't think he was going to break the act, but he's yelling at him, and so Merab just stops, and then O'Malley goes to try to swing at him, which, hey, whatever, good on him, because
protect yourself at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, and your opponent decided it was a good idea to start kissing you in the neck. So that's on Merab, but it is what it is. So that was another weird moment. Now, I just want to bring this up. So Merab, basically the rest of the fight is him taking down O'Malley until we get to round 5. And, Dana talked about this too. Someone asked if they thought O'Malley froze. And he said he was. Dana thought he couldn't really get his game plan. He thought he might have froze. Maybe a little truth to that, but I think that's more what Merab did, because Merab was able just to take him down like no one else has been able to take him down, and really just kind of, really just ragdoll him for the most part for those rounds. But if you look at that 5th round where he started to kick at the body at Merab, like he really went for it there. And I think that's a situation where if he had saw an opening like that maybe earlier, this could have been a different fight, but it never materialized. I think it'll be interesting if down the road these two ever rematch. That's certainly not going to happen right away. There's no reason for it. I think no one logically wants to see that. But
no, Merab dominated, so there won't be.
Yeah, there's no reason. And we're not talking about like we're going off an Anderson Silva type reign. He had one defense, and then he went into this one. Not fun, weird at times, but at the end of the day, I guess congratulations to Merab. Umar has got to be next, is the way I see it. I mean, there's Davidson Figueiredo could be fun too. I think Umar is probably the go-to guy stylistically to fight with Merab.
Yeah, I thought Sean did well to get up when he was taken down, because you have to get up, but he just could not get any offense going. I think he did freeze. He was throwing like 8 punches in a round, which how are you expected to keep Merab off if he's not even throwing feints out there. So right. You have all that reach on him, and he's getting into your legs all the time. Like, you just got to at least throw jabs out there, throw an uppercut or fake an uppercut or a knee up the middle. I think he threw like 1 or 2 knees up the middle and just kept getting taken down anyway. Like, yeah, you got to go for it, throw something. But I agree with you. I did think that he looked pretty defeated at times going in there. I thought he did well to conserve his energy, but just couldn't get it going. Didn't look like typical Sean O'Malley on the night. Mm-hmm. And that's on him and his coach, Tim Welch, because Merab did what Merab does in every single fight. He did exactly what they had to know he was going to do, so they didn't prepare properly or could not prepare properly. So, yeah, I'm with you. Merab's got to fight either Usman or Figueiredo next, but I think I'm more excited for O'Malley to fight Corey Sandhagen next. Yeah. I want to see that. So
I'll throw one other at you too. What about O'Malley and Davidson Figueiredo too? I think that could be a very interesting, fun fight too.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, somebody's probably going to sleep in that one. So
yeah, Figueiredo would probably. I'm sure. I know he wants a title shot, but I'm sure he'd definitely be up for that fight. So
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So some interesting potential fights still at bantamweight. I think if you're this division, though, you're hoping Umar wins, even though he's going to be such a problem. But Merab has beaten so many people already. You're hoping, at least matchmaking-wise, you can get a fresh new matchup. Unless you're Corey Sandhagen. Then you're hoping to get a big win over Davidson or Sean O'Malley or somebody, and you're hoping to maybe fight Merab next.
Yeah. The Usman one is interesting because he might have the wrestling or enough wrestling to nullify what Merab is doing. So
Yeah.
could be a very boring fight, but interesting stylistically.
Yeah, I think you said Usman. That's what I was like.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah, Umar. Usman's a different guy. Yeah. Usman Nurmagomedov, he's in Bellator or some shit. So
okay.
Yeah.
It was definitely a noteworthy card to talk about, but ultimately, unfortunately, you had great sizzle, which the UFC normally doesn't have. But the steak, unfortunately, wasn't quite, which UFC normally does well. But that was the part that was lacking on this night. Just
they did all the visuals and everything. It was all in between fights. There was no like cool like pride walkout thing.
That would be
they
cool.
really should have utilized that more for walkouts. Instead, it was just the normal walkout, the guy walking out and waving to the crowd and everything. Could have done something with that.
More of a
that was cool. I did like that. All the different outfits and stuff the ring card girls had. Then they like hired all new like Mexican ring card girls. They had some really cool outfits. They weren't just dressed super provocatively or dressed in a bathing suit like normal or whatever.
Like you said, I think it'd been fun if they incorporated some stuff with it. If it was me personally as a fan, I like what you said there. Do some kind of fun, unique entrances, maybe some different historical video packages with some of the great fighters, maybe honoring some, fighters like Chavez, stuff like that. That would be fun. And then I would have probably done less on the theatrical stuff, although it was nice to have some of that. It was different. But at the end of the end, then just hope you get some finishes here. We need finishes.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.